Greetings. I see you've made your way past enemy lines to the Dark Outpost. Welcome, Patriots. I'm David Zublik, your host on this excursion to the darkest outposts of the human mind and beyond. Thank you for being with us today. We appreciate it. We have a great show lined up for you today. I think you're really going to enjoy it. Coming up in just a couple of moments, Micah Dank will be rejoining the Dark Outpost. You might remember that he was with us a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about biblical codes. We were talking about something called astrotheology. And I felt that we really hadn't had an opportunity to cover it to the extent that I wanted to. So I asked Micah to come back on the program, and he has graciously agreed. We're honored to have him with us, and he will be joining us in about 3 or 4 minutes. A little bit later on in the program, Michelle Stefanik is going to be with us. She has been exposing the conspiracies behind the African embassy bombing, the 9/11 attacks on our country, and Benghazi. And she does it from a very personal perspective, since it really affected her life as she was involved to a certain extent with the African embassy bombing, and she was able to obtain some very troubling information about our own government's involvement in those attacks. And then, still to come also later in the program, Zai Paris will be rejoining us. It's been a while since we talked with Zai. He posed an interesting question the other day, and I couldn't think of anyone better to help us muddle through the answer to that question than Zai himself. And that question is this: if you have doppelgangers, lookalikes, or clones, or whatever you want to call them, taking the place of some real people in public life, what is the motivation for them to take on such a job? What happens to them when the real person that they are imitating dies? And that sort of thing. It's an interesting observation. We're going to get into that with Zai Paris. So we've got a jam-packed program for you. Micah Dank will be joining us in just a couple of moments. But before we get to him, let's first of all do as we do each and every day and take a moment to honor our nation and its flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hey, quick question for you folks. Have you ever had something you really wanted, maybe at some point as a kid for Christmas or whatever, and never got it? Or you see something and you go, I'd really like to have one of those. Well, here's an opportunity that you can't pass up. Now, you might know that President Biden, or President-elect phony President Biden, is proposing new, stricter gun control measures in an effort to fight gun violence in this country. And these proposals specifically target gun dealers, but they also affect gun owners as a whole. And to combat this and to show their support for the Second Amendment, FreeAmericaWatch.com has launched their own special edition pocket watch. I have one, and it looks exactly like this. You're going to love this thing, folks. Take a look at this beautiful watch. This thing is fantastic. Now, it's stainless steel. It has engravings of skulls, revolvers, and bullets, along with a quote, "Defending Liberty since 1791." It looks like it came straight out of a pirate ship. Well, every time I pull my Second Amendment pocket watch out in public, it's guaranteed to get a conversation going. Every gun rights supporter should have this watch. Now, you can learn more by going to freeamericawatch.com. That's freeamericawatch.com, or just click the link in the description of this video. If you order one of these watches today, you're going to get an additional pocket watch for free during their buy one, get one free promotion. Again, that's freeamericawatch.com. All right. Let us bring into the picture now, if he is ready to come on board, Micah Dank. He appears to be attempting to join the studio right now. Hopefully he'll be with us in a second. There he is. How you doing, Micah?
David, how's it going, man?
Hey, thanks for coming back. I really felt that we hadn't had enough time to discuss our topics last time, so I'm so glad you came back.
Yeah,
I
no
was
problem.
just as a refresher course for our listeners who hadn't and viewers who hadn't heard you the last time. Give us what the definition of astrotheology is.
Astrotheology is best described by a couple of things. Number one, it's the idea that Jesus is not the Son of God, as in the S-O-N, but he's the S-U-N. It's a word conflagration. And astrotheology is basically the metaphors that the sun goes through the 12 zodiac signs and all the constellations that are out there. So it's just hidden meanings within there. And I know there's a lot of people reach out to me after our last one, and
Oh,
bought the
good.
books and everything. And I was thrilled to come back on because I thought we'd go over the book of Revelation because people are really scared that it's prophecy. And I'm just going to show you that it's not. I'm just going to
Well,
show you what it truly is.
that's awesome. So let's do that. But before we do, let's promote your books if we could, because I think it's very important. You've got it's called the Into the Rabbit Hole series. You've got Beneath the Veil. There are other books. Some are they all published now, or are you still in are some of these still in the works?
Five out of six are. Five out of six are. The fifth one just published 2 weeks ago.
Okay, so we've got
the last one comes out September 15th.
And is that the final type?
Yes, that's the
okay.
Final
So
type.
we've got right now they have the Beneath the Veil, the Sacred Stories, the Secret Weapon, Pangea's Pandemic, the Hidden Archives, and final type will be coming out in September. I highly recommend, folks, that you get these books. They're all available on Amazon, I'm assuming.
Yes,
that's okay.
They're all on Amazon. But if you wanted to, if a lot of people don't like going through like Jeff Bezos and Amazon.
Yeah.
And especially I'm assuming in your fan base, because that's where I roll around too.
Yeah.
A lot of people that listen to us don't like going to Amazon. And if you reach out to me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, I could send you a signed set of copies.
That'd be great. So, folks, please reach out to Micah. We'll give contact information out in a little bit so that people can get a hold of you, because I want your books to get the widest possible distribution. I think it's very important. Okay, so let's get into the Book of Revelation. Give us what you think most people's interpretation of the Book of Revelation is, and then tell us how what you have discovered is different.
Okay. The Book of Revelation is supposed to be written by John. And supposed to be basically the end of the world, talking about the rapture and the second coming and everything, and all the craziness that's going to happen involved in it. But before I go into this, I think, like I did last time, I should probably go over the 12 signs of the zodiac with you.
Sure, please.
Okay, great. Now, you're familiar with this because I did this already, but some of your audience might not be, or maybe they didn't hear me last time. That's fine. Right. So I start with Aquarius, which is the sign represented by the man with the water pitcher. Okay, that's the sign of Aquarius. So whenever you hear words like man or son of man or flowing water or even baptism, because that's how you baptize someone, is with a pitcher of water and you pour it on their head. So you hear baptism or man or flowing water or spring or fountain, things of that nature, they're talking about Aquarius. Then Pisces is the sign of the two fish in the water. And then Aries is the ram. And in Aries, you have March 21st, which is the spring equinox. It's a 12-hour day, 12-hour night. And it's also, the Jewish people celebrate the Passover during Aries every year, Nisan 14. It always falls in Aries. And the reason they do that is because God passed over Egypt, supposedly, and smite the firstborn male children of Egyptians, which was the 10th plague. In astrotheology, the Passover is literally that. It's the sun passing over the spring equinox and on its way back to its height in the summer solstice, where the kingdom of heaven is. In Christianity, the passing over is changed and it becomes the resurrection of God's son, because you have Easter, which is always in Aries as well, too. Mm-hmm. Aries is the beginning of the year. Then you have Taurus, which is the bull. So when you look at the sky, you've heard of the phrase as above, so below, right?
Yes.
It's literally as above, so below. You look up at the sky, you see the bull, you know you have to put the plow on the bull on Earth in order to plant the seeds for to harvest in Virgo and Libra. Now you got to remember, this was written thousands of years ago when this was how they did it. They didn't have tractors back then. Okay, so They used to literally use the bull. So then Gemini are the twins. It's the story of Castor and Pollux Troy, whose sister was Helen of Troy. It's the story of Achilles. And Cancer is the crab. And the crab a sideways moving creature. Whereas we walk diagonally or front and back, we don't really shuffle to the side. That's not a method that we use to walk. But
Not
that's
when we're
crab.
sober.
Not when we're exactly. I should have added that. But yeah, no. So that's why it's the crab, because it moves sideways. And what the sun does is the sun technically moves sideways. See, what happens is on December 25th, the sun rises a degree on its axis. And then it continues to rise a degree on its axis every single day until it hits June 21st, which is at its height. It's the summer solstice. It's the longest day of the year. That's why it's a celebration. Then for 3 consecutive days after that, it stays at that height. So the sun literally walks sideways. And then on June 25th, it drops a degree. So it's no longer walking sideways. And then it continues to drop a degree every single day until it hits December 21st, which is the winter solstice, okay, which is the longest night of the year, okay? They used to say that God's sun was dead because it didn't rise on its axis. And then it shuffles to the side for 3 days, just like it did in June.
Mm-hmm.
June 21st, I mean, December 21st, 22nd, 23rd, and 24th, those 3 days, it stays at the height. So that's where you get the phrase God's son was dead for 3 days. It's a metaphor.
Right.
And then on December 25th, that's why you celebrate the birth of Tammuz. That's why you celebrate the birth of Horus, the birth of Zeus, of all the gods on December 25th. This is why. Then Leo is the next sign. Leo is the king, the lion, the king of the jungle. The ruling planet of Leo is actually the sun. So when they're talking about the kingdom of heaven, they're talking about on earth, they're talking about the sun, God's son in his home, in his rightful place, which is Leo. Then Virgo is the woman holding the wheat stalk. And so remember before I said you plant in Taurus with the bull?
Yes.
So you plant in Taurus with the bull, and then what happens is it's the virgin with the wheat stalk, because the virgins would go out and cultivate the wheat in Virgo and make the bread for the year. So whenever you hear the words barley or wheat or chaff or things of that nature, or young woman or virgin or seed, like mustard seed, for example, anything that has to do with grain, that's talking about Virgo, because that's when you harvest it. Then Libra is the justice. It's the scales, it's the balance, it's the just one. And the reason it's justice is because it judges God's sun as it passes over the fall equinox and begins its descent into winter, into cold, into death. So you celebrate the spring equinox crossing over.
Right.
Okay. And here, the sun is judged because it passes over the fall equinox, which sets its way down to hell, basically, down into winter, into cold, into death. So maybe here, justice, law, judgment, tax, divorce, marriage, things of that nature, things that have to do with law, things that have to do with judging, a judge, judgment. They're talking about Libra. Libra is also wine season. Okay, so anytime you hear vineyard or vine or grapevine or grapes or wine, you're talking about Libra. Libra is also olive season. So when Jesus goes to the Mount of Olives, it's a metaphor for him going into Libra, the sun going into Libra. So you have Virgo, the bread, and Libra, the wine. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Then the Scorpio is the scorpion, and he's known as the betrayer, because when a scorpion bites you, it leaves an imprint in your skin that looks like a pair of lips. It's why the mafia has the kiss of death, and it's why Jesus was betrayed by Judas with a kiss.
Right.
Because he could have been betrayed with by being stoned, by pointing him out, by hugging him. No, it was a kiss, and it was a specific kiss, because that's what the scorpion does. That's what Scorpio does. So the sun is betrayed in Libra. I'm sorry, the sun is judged in Libra and betrayed in Scorpio. And then finally in Sagittarius, that's where the rider with the bow and the arrow inflict further punishment and shoot the sun, end up killing him. In Sagittarius, you have December 21st, which is the day of death. Okay, December 21st is the day that the sun doesn't rise on its axis, and then for 3 days it stays dead. Okay, so whenever you're talking about any death.
So the same, like in June 25th, and this is something I learned from you, and I did not know this until I interviewed you last time. Mm-hmm. I thought that immediately that after June 21st, the sun started setting more quickly, but it stays for 3 days, and in December it stays for 3 days at the same sunset.
It goes up a degree every single day, hits June 21st, walks sideways for 3 days, drops a degree on the 25th. Right. Goes down a degree every single day, hits December 21st, walks sideways for 3 days, and then goes up a degree and starts going up.
Wow,
it does the same pattern.
I learned that from you, so that's fantastic. I didn't know that.
Yeah, this is the pattern that it goes in. So anytime you're talking about death, you're talking about Sagittarius, because they have December 21st. Or if you're talking about a horse with a bow or a horse with a rider, bow and arrow, horsemen. When they're talking about the 4 horsemen, for example, in Revelation, which I'll get to, okay? You have Sagittarius, which is the horseman. The day of death is December 21st in Sagittarius. There's 4 gospels where Jesus dies, okay?
Right.
That's why there are 4 horsemen in Revelation, because they represent each one of his deaths. Okay, does that make a little bit of sense?
Yeah, you've put it together quite succinctly, and kind of refreshed my memory, and for viewers that might have missed it the first time, or even if they didn't, you've set the stage here for how all of these zodiac signs represent or what's in the Bible. I love the way you did that. So now we get to the book of Revelation.
Wait, I got one more sign though. The sign of Capricorn.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you had finished. I'm sorry.
No,
Go ahead.
that's okay. The sign of Capricorn. Capricorn is the goat because he likes to climb the mountains.
Oh,
the zodiac wheel. The Capricorn is at the bottom of the zodiac wheel. So if you picture the sun walking alongside the zodiac wheel, rising a degree a day every day, it starts the climb in Capricorn. Just like a goat climbs the mountain better than any other animal, that's why it's a goat. So that's the 12 signs, and that's what you basically look for. I've given you the words and keywords to look for. If you want me to just hop right into Revelation, I can.
Yeah, I would. Because many people feel right now that we are either living in the end times or close to them, and I think that you bring a perspective.
But you do realize that every single generation of religious person feels the exact same way.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
They felt it. They felt it 30 years ago. They felt it 60 years ago. They felt it 90 years ago.
2,000 years ago. I'm sure they thought Jesus was going to come 2 weeks after he ascended into heaven. So
right. Absolutely.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So I'm gonna decode this as I read it. Okay. So this is John's vision of Christ. This is the very beginning of Revelation. It says, I turned around to see a voice that was speaking to me, and when I turned, I saw 7 golden lampstands. And among the lampstands was someone like a son of man. Okay, well, the son of man is Aquarius, dressed in a robe reaching down to his feet with a golden sash around his chest. The golden sash is a metaphor for the sun being an Aquarius. Make sense?
Right. Yep.
Okay. The hair on his head was white like wool. Well, wool comes from sheep, the ram, Aries, as white as snow, and his eyes were like a blazing fire. The blazing fire is the sun, so now the sun is in Aries.
Okay.
His feet were like a bronze glowing in a furnace. His voice was like the sound of rushing waters. And I mentioned that before, rushing waters. Aquarius. That's Aquarius, the man with the water pitcher. Mm-hmm. In his right hand, he held 7 stars. Do you know what the 7 stars are?
No. I've heard of them, but I don't know what they are.
Have you heard of the Pleiades?
Yes. Okay. I didn't know they were. I forgot that they were called the 7 stars.
They were called the 7 sisters. They're the
7 sisters.
They're the 7 stars. Yes.
Yeah. We used to have. There were some. I'll tell you a little bit later on what I thought the 7 sisters were growing up. But go ahead.
Okay. Revelation 4:7. The first living creature was like a lion. The second was like an ox. The third had a face like a man. The fourth was like a flying eagle. In astrology, the eagle is the evolved form of the Scorpio. See, the scorpion is the belly-crawling creature. Okay, it crawls on its belly, so it's the lowest form of life on Earth. But in astrology, it evolves into becoming the eagle, which is the highest flying creature on Earth. Okay, so the first living creature was like a lion, that's Leo. The second was like an ox, that's Taurus. The third had a face like a man, that's Aquarius. And the fourth was like a flying eagle, that's Scorpio. Those are the 4 fixed signs of the zodiac. Okay, so if you have your zodiac wheel,
right?
Okay, and you connect the solstices and the equinox, they make a perfect cross. That's the cross of God's Son that Jesus lives and dies on. That the Son lives and dies on. The Son of God, the only begotten Son, the light of the world. Okay,
right.
All right. These make an X through that cross like this.
Okay.
Okay, so it's a perfect celestial alignment, and that's why they chose it that way. Revelation 5:5. Then one of the elders said to me, do not weep. See, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has triumphed. He is able to open the scroll and its 7 seals. Well, the Lion of Judah is just, you're talking about the sun in Leo. See, when the sun is in Aquarius, Jesus is called the Son of Man. When the sun is in Pisces, he's called the Fisherman of Men. When the sun is in Aries, he's called the Lamb of God. Okay. When the sun is in Leo, he's called the Lion of Judah. Then you have the Virgo with the wheat stalk. Okay, he's born of a virgin, and he's called the bread of life. When the sun is in Libra, the justice, he's called the just one. You see how this works?
Yes. Yes.
These are all names for him that they're given in church, not realizing that there's celestial connections to it.
Well, somebody must have known there was a celestial connection to it, because the signs of the zodiac and the stars were around before Jesus. So someone must have used the zodiac as the basis for coming up with a lot of this.
That's the idea. But if you look at the Roman Catholic Catechism 2116, they flat out tell you that astrology is evil.
Oh, of course.
So they basically, this is an astrology book, and it's basically told that it's an astrology book that's encoded. But if you read it literally tells you that astrology is garbage. You know,
I'm actually surprised then that the book of, we know that in fact, I've been going over this with another guest on once a week. We cover the missing or the lost or banned books of the Bible, the ones that the Catholic Church pulled out and said you can't have them in there. And I'm actually surprised. At one point, I found out that the book of Revelation was removed from the Bible, but then it was put back in later. Did you ever hear anything about that?
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
if so, why do you think they put it back in?
It's a control mechanism. It's a control mechanism is what it is. It's a control mechanism. I'm assuming you're talking about things like the Book of Enoch.
Yes, the Book of Enoch, the Book of Ruth, some of these other that sort of thing. These the Dead Sea Scrolls, some of these other things that were discovered.
The Gospel of Thomas, which I'm reading right now.
Yeah, Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of the Holy 12.
Absolutely. And the Book of Enoch is a fun read. We can do that too, because believe it or not, that's all astrology too. We should be able to do that.
Yeah, that sounds good. But that's what's interesting is that the Book of Revelation at some point was pulled out, and now basically it's back in. And yet the Roman Catholic Church, you rightly pointed out, they poo-poo astrology and say it's actually demonic to even look at that sort of thing. And yet, even if you take
gaslighting is what it is. It's gaslighting, because there's two ways to read the Bible. You can read it as. Let me give you another example.
Sure.
I watched Revelation 6:1. I watched as the Lamb opened the first of the 7 seals. Then I heard one of the 4 living creatures say in a voice like thunder, "Come." Now the Lamb is Aries, but do you know why the first seal has to be opened in Aries?
No.
Aries is the beginning of the year. Aries is the beginning of the year. In the old calendar, Aries starts the beginning of the year. That's March, April.
That's right.
Okay? That's March, April.
That's when spring was breaking and everything else. That was new beginnings anyway, right?
New beginnings, exactly. The word apri in Italian means to open. It's a new opening. It's a new beginning. That's where that comes from.
That's where April comes from too, probably then.
Yep, absolutely. And if you look at September, October, November, December, or Sept, Oct, Nov, Dec, that's 7, 8, 9, 10. That lines up when you started in Aries.
Yeah,
because Julius
months Augustus, of the year, except the last 4, 7, 8, 9, and 10. But there's
Julius Augustus and Julius Caesar and Caesar Augustus added their names as the months. Threw the whole calendar off. But basically, so that's why the Lamb. I watched as the Lamb opened the first door. Remember, Jesus, when the sun is in Aries, Jesus called the Lamb of God. When he's in Pisces, he's the fisherman of men because of the fish. And it's also why Jesus is on the mount and he's feeding everyone with 2 fish. It's a metaphor for the sun being in Pisces.
That's absolutely amazing. That's absolutely amazing. All right, tell us a little bit about the Book of Enoch then.
Yeah, we could do a whole thing on Enoch down the road if you'd like.
I intend to have you back again and again. This is not a one and done thing, or even a 2 and done thing. I'd like to have you back on a regular basis because I think it's fascinating. So let me ask you this question. There's something in your bio, and I wanted to ask you about this, about the pyramids. How do the pyramids tie into all of this?
The pyramids are free energy places. I don't know if you've ever known what's so special about pyramids. But
other than the fact that they're burial grounds for the elite,
Well,
the
yes,
pharaohs and such.
yes and no, yes and no. That's what they say there, but they're free energy devices. There was a guy a few years back, just a few years ago. He was a farmer, and he put a pyramid on his farmland. Okay, he built the pyramid because he was obsessed with them.
Okay.
He planted things throughout everything. What he found was the food that grew, and you can Google this. I'm not making this up. He found that the food that grew in the pyramid grew 4 times as fast as the food outside of the pyramid. It's a free energy device. That's what it is. It's a free energy device. The capstones that had been since removed, I believe by the Catholic Church, from the pyramids the pyramids used to be completely encased in white limestone, and the capstones were either gold or black. I don't know
Okay.
if it was obsidian, what they were made of, but it was either gold or something. They were communication devices. They were
Oh,
transmuting light is what they were doing.
I do know that uh, they said that when pharaohs and such died and they were put into these pyramids, they actually were buried in such a way that if they could continue living inside the pyramid, that they weren't really dead, that they were there was some sort of their life going on inside this completely contained
Right.
structure. So obviously, when I said burial ground, it was more to it than just that. But I did
Right.
not know they were a free energy source. But it makes sense,
Absolutely.
doesn't
And
it?
I write about that in my second book. Of course, I take a little creative liberty with it, but I do write about what it is. It's truth in fiction, David.
Yes. And, oh, by the way, for those of our viewers who don't know, these books are all books of fiction, but it was the best way to get your message across instead of just doing it as a textbook. The best way
That
to
no
do
one
it.
would read. Exactly.
Right. Right.
Instead, it's an
For
engaging
those of us who are
series.
nonfiction lovers, I would read your book even if it was nonfiction. But the idea is, it certainly makes it more entertaining,
Yes.
and people don't even know they're learning something,
Yeah.
but they walk away with this knowledge. It's
Well, that's the idea, David, is that when you write fiction, and
yeah,
never mind when you write it, when someone's reading your story, they
yes.
have to buy into the reality that you created. They have to
Yeah.
realize that your
Well, they
world.
suspend their disbelief. They
Yes, that's what
suspend
it
it.
is. They
For the,
have to see that your world makes sense in order for them to accept what's being shared. It's just a lot easier to do that in fiction.
yeah, it is. And and I think you told me the last time you were on, you're currently in the process of negotiating a movie deal for at least one of your books, correct?
Well, we're trying. I
Or
want to do a
TV?
TV series, a mini series. Yes, my publicist has reached out to a TV producer who wrote her back and said that my books blew his mind.
Yeah.
So hopefully we have something in the next week or two. My
Well,
publicist said she was going to get back to me.
Well, as soon as you know, if you will contact us and let us know that this has worked out at your convenience, we'll have you immediately back on the program.
Absolutely.
And even if whether we get to that part of it or not, I definitely want to have you back on at least every couple of weeks or so we get through a lot of this, because there's no way we only got an hour today. We only had an hour last time, but I'll have you on for several different hours. So
Okay.
we'll continue this conversation.
Do you want me to keep going with these passages?
Yes, I do. Yes, absolutely.
Revelation 6:2. This one is easy. I looked, and there before me was a white horse. Its rider held a bow. That's Sagittarius,
Yeah.
the bow and the arrow.
And also,
and I mentioned before
didn't they
that
say
there's
Jesus was going to return on a white horse too when he
Yeah.
comes back.
That's a metaphor. Jesus is the sun.
Yeah, exactly. So the sun will
You
come
know?
back on Sagittarius on the white horse.
Yep. Then I heard, this is Revelation 6:6. Then I heard what sounded like a voice among the four living creatures saying, 2 pounds of wheat for a day's wages and 6 pounds of barley for a day's wage.
Now you're cutting out a little bit there, Micah. I don't know if we have a bad connection or froze up a little bit. Are you there?
There.
I don't know if you got a bad connection where you are. Maybe you can. We seem to be having a little bit of difficulty with Micah's connection. We're talking with Micah Dank, author of the Into the Rabbit Hole series of fiction books, and I think we're losing our connection with Micah, and we just did. Okay, Micah, if you will try to log back in, we would appreciate it. Hopefully he will be able to rejoin us in just a moment. We just lost him here, so let's see if we can get him back.
I'm back. I switched it to Wi-Fi.
Oh, okay, no problem. Thanks. Sorry about that.
To Wi-Fi.
All right.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
So Revelation 6:6. Then I heard what sounded like a voice among the four living creatures saying, 2 pounds of wheat for a day's wages and 6 pounds of barley for a day's wages. That's Virgo. And do not damage the oil and the wine. Well, the oil is olive oil, which is Libra, and the wine is Libra. So Virgo and Libra, those are connecting signs. They're literally just outlining the zodiac for you here.
Yeah. Wow, that's unbelievable. I mean, until I had you on the first time, I had never connected. The only thing with astrology that I thought had a connection to the Bible was when the 3 wise men followed the star to locate Jesus in Bethlehem.
Right.
You knew that there had to be something there.
Well, the 3 wise men represent the 3 wise men.
Yeah.
The 3 wise men are Orion Belt, the 3 stars, and they follow a star that leads to the east.
Right.
Okay, there's a star under it that they follow. Okay, so that's just what they are. They're just metaphors for that. Have you heard of the 144,000?
It sounds familiar. Refresh me.
Revelation 7:4. Then I heard the number of those who were sealed, 144,000 from all the tribes of Israel.
Okay.
So they're basically saying there are sects of Christianity that believe that only 144,000 people are going to go to heaven. Out of all the billion people that have been here, they do that. But are you familiar with the chakras?
Repeat that, you cut out a little bit.
Are you familiar with the chakras?
The chakras?
System?
No.
Yeah.
I'm learning from you today. This is
So the
all
chakras are energy nodal points on your body.
Okay.
Okay. There are 7 chakras. The root chakra, which is your base chakra at the bottom, has 4 petals. The sacral, a little higher, has 6. The solar plexus, which is right here, has 10.
Okay.
The heart has 12. The throat has 16, which equals 48. The third eye chakra is represented by 96 and only has 2 petals because it's 2 times as powerful as the lower chakras.
Okay.
So 48 times 2 equals 96. And then finally, the crown chakra is 1,000 times more powerful than the lower 6 chakras. When you add the lower 6, you get 96 plus 48 is 144. And times that by 1,000 and you get your 144,000. What it's basically saying is when all your chakras are aligned, when all your chakras are activated, that's when you get to go to heaven and see God.
Interesting. Now, why did they determine that it was? How did they? I mean, obviously, defining what the chakras are gets to the 144. But why do they believe only 144,000 are going to?
Because they take it literally. They take
Okay.
this book literally, which you're not supposed to do. You're not supposed to do. Revelation 9:3, for example, and out of the smoke came down on earth. They were given the power of the out of the smoke, locusts came down on earth, and they were given power like that of the scorpions on earth. Well, scorpions is just Scorpio, and they are the betrayer. That's what they are. So they're given the power to betray humanity. Then Revelation 9:7, continuing with the locusts looked like horses prepared for battle. So that's Sagittarius. Okay, on their head they wore something like a crown of gold, and that's just a metaphor for the sun. There's a million ways you can metaphorize the sun. So a crown of gold, so the sun in Sagittarius, and their faces resembled human faces. Well, that's Aquarius. Their hair were like women's hair, or Virgo, and their teeth were like lion's teeth, or Leo. They had tails with stingers, like scorpions. I mean, every line is just astrology. You know, throughout this, just like I did the book of Matthew, just like I did that with you before, every line is just like that.
Let me ask you this question: if and you've made it abundantly clear that the entire book of Revelation is a book of astrology, you made it clear. You just pointed that out. Now, knowing that, why then the Catholic Church must also know that? So why do they poo-poo astrology and yet keep this book in the Bible and basically say, yeah, it's a book of astrology, don't believe it literally, except they expect us to take the rest of the Bible literally. Yeah. Everything else is the Word of God, correct?
Yes, everything, and it's a control mechanism. Okay,
Control me.
I'm working on the Quran right now.
Oh,
Same thing. I've worked on the New and the Old Testament. It's the same thing. I've done the Book of Enoch, Matthew, Raziel. I've done all these books. You
do you
know, and I could
anticipate
show
running
you
into?
how.
Do you anticipate running into problems doing the Quran from Muslims?
That's going to be like a surprise book 7. That's only going to come
Okay.
out once that's done when I'm done writing it.
Okay.
But I I anticipate that this is a hard pill for anyone to swallow, to realize that you've been lied to and that the book is actually just an astrology book. Let me read you. Have you heard of the great sign, the woman with the dragon? Do you remember
Yes.
that passage?
Yes.
Okay. Let me read that to you. A
Sure.
great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet and a crown of 12 stars on her head. Okay?
Hmm.
That alone, a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun. That's a metaphor for the sun in Virgo, the woman. Okay?
Right.
With the moon under her feet. So the sun spends 2 hours a day in each sign. Okay, there's 12 signs. That gives us our 24-hour clock.
Right.
Okay, so it's
Correct.
2 hours in each day. Virgo is the 8th sign. Okay, so what you do is you multiply 2 hours by 8, you get 1600. In military time, that's 4 p.m. For
Correct.
Virgo, the sun is in Virgo at 4 p.m. 4 p.m. is still the middle of the day. If the sun is in the middle of the day, then the moon is at her feet. When the moon comes up, the sun goes down. Make sense?
Yes.
She was pregnant and cried out in pain as she was about to give birth. That's another allusion to the virgin birth. Then another sign appeared in heaven, an enormous red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns on its head. Its tail swept a third of the stars out of the sky and flung them to earth. The constellation Draco is the dragon. Have you heard of the constellation Draco
I
before?
have. Yes, I have.
That's the dragon. Now, its tail goes from Aries to Sagittarius. Its tail swept a third of the stars out of the sky and flung them to earth. That's just a metaphor. Its tail goes 4/12 of the signs, or 1/3 of the stars out of the sky. That's all this passage is saying.
All right. Wow. Incredible. What's going to be interesting? It's going to be interesting to see what happens again when you work on the. Are you going to? Obviously, that's going to be a work of fiction as well. Correct? Are you going to do
Of
it?
course.
It'll be interesting to see if you get any blowback from the Islamic world for that, because you know how remember the person that drew a picture of Muhammad and they made such a big deal out, that
Yeah.
sort of thing. So you'll probably, but I think it's great that you're tackling this. I think it's awesome. Now, the Book of Enoch, you mentioned that a little bit. Give us some things from there.
Do you want me to finish Revelation? Because I only have like 5 or 6 more.
Oh yeah,
slides.
I'm sorry. Please go ahead.
Because we could do the Book of Enoch is going to take me an hour to do.
You want to do it? Okay, so we'll save that. All right, that's fine. We'll save that for another
So
time.
I'll just finish this. So Revelation 13, Revelation 13:2. The beast I saw resembled a leopard, but had feet like those of a bear and a mouth like that of a lion. There's a constellation called Camelopardalis. Okay, it can reference a camel, which is Camelos, and a leopard, which is Pardalis. The giraffe used to actually be called the camel leopard. Does that make sense? If you think about the animal,
Yeah.
it used to be called a camel leopard. So the beast resembled Camelopardalis, but had the feet of a bear. That's Ursa Major and Ursa Minor, represented by the great bear and its cubs, and the mouth of a lion, which is Leo. That's all this is. Then I saw Revelation 13:11. Then I saw a second beast coming out of the earth. It had 2 horns like a lamb, which is Aries, but it spoke like a dragon. That's the constellation Draco. Then Revelation 18:13. This one is loaded. Cargoes of cinnamon and spice, of incense, myrrh, and frankincense, of wine and oil. Wine and oil, that is Libra. Of fine flour and wheat, that is Virgo. Cattle, that is Taurus. And sheep, that is Aries. Horses, that is Sagittarius. And carriages. And human beings, that is Aquarius, sold as slaves. So when you read it straight away, it says cargoes of cinnamon and spice, of incense, myrrh, and frankincense, of wine and oil, of fine flour and wheat, cattle and sheep, horses and carriages, and human beings sold as slaves. You can read it literally, or you can read it like they meant for it to be read, which is what I just did. And that is the book of Revelation.
Would you recommend that when someone takes a Bible in their hand, that they should do so perhaps with the signs of the zodiac with them so that they can go through and say, hey, this goes to this goes to this, that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, it'll change the way you read it. That's for sure. It'll open your mind to see just how many. In my first book, I
Yeah.
outline every single instance. There's a couple pages I decode. I do to it. Every single passage that I have it broken down. Like I wrote the word lion, and I showed every passage that has the word lion in it. You know, that virgin, water pitcher, fish, things of that nature. You know, and I broke that down in book 1.
Where do you believe the lost city of Atlantis is? Because there's something about crystal technology and the lost city of Atlantis.
Yeah, crystal technology is interesting too, because they recently found a way, I think 10 years ago, to embed a movie into a crystal. See, crystals, first you have to understand about crystals is that they're neither solid nor liquid. They vibrate at a high frequency that gives the illusion of it being solid. They vibrate. They're literally alive. Okay, I know it sounds crazy, but they are. You can charge them depending on whether you have to charge them by the moon or by the sun. You charge these things and you fill them with energy. They embedded a movie into a crystal and pulled it out of it too. They were able to get it. And then what you also need to understand is, excuse me, is that you see things like the Cave of Crystals in Superman, like they're telling you things. Crystals are going to be the new hard drive. They're going to be the new hard drive for computers because they have way more storage than even a terabyte chip this small could have. You know, you can store the entire world's worth of data in a crystal. You know, and that's what's going to happen in the future.
Isn't it also possible, according to some science fiction novels that I read, to use crystals as a power source, such as in the Star Trek series, you have what they call dilithium crystals, which are
and that's what happened to Atlantis, according to Edgar Casey, is that Atlantis basically they overcharged the crystal and it just caused a massive eruption that took the whole place down. I think Atlantis was Antarctica, to be honest with you,
because there's a lot of weird things going on in Antarctica. We've been covering some of that on the program as well.
You hear about things like the Piri Reis map, which was a map that they found in 1543, that Columbus even used part of it. But what it is it's a map on a skin that comes from 30 other maps, or at least 30 other maps. And it's this one map that they drew out in the 1500s, and they outlined the shore of Antarctica, and they showed it as having land and not being under snow. This was in the 1500s. Now, Antarctica was only supposedly discovered in the 1800s, but there's a map called the Piri Reis map, which is you can Google it.
All right.
Piri Reis map, and you'll be able to see Antarctica at the bottom with the land.
That is fascinating. Now, tell me about, is it Robert Byrd? Is he the person? He had something he discovered Antarctica, right? Or something about Antarctica, correct? He was a novelist, and a naval officer and an explorer. And didn't he discover Antarctica?
Supposedly, but Antarctica had been discovered well before then. Well before then.
What do you think is going on in Antarctica today?
It's hard to say, because there's that peace treaty that doesn't let you go there. In my 5th book, my characters go on a flat Earth cruise to find the edge of the world.
Yeah.
And they get dropped off in Antarctica because there's something that they have to find in Antarctica. I don't want to give anything away in case people want to read it, but
no, I want people to read. Don't give anything away. But let me ask you this question. Speaking of that, since you brought this up, what do you make of flat Earth people? The people who believe the Earth is flat?
I don't know how I feel about it. I lean against it, to be honest with you. But I will tell you this is no group of people get as angry with you when they're trying to convince you about something than flat Earth people do. There's something about them that they're just intolerable when it comes to people believing anything but that. And to me, being a flat earther is interesting because, like, what I'm doing has a purpose to me. You know,
Yeah.
what is proving the earth is flat? What does that accomplish? What does that do? Does that undo a systemic injustice like I'm trying to do? Does that do anything?
No.
No, it just tells you that the earth is flat, and then that's it. That's game over. You know, I don't see a purpose to it.
And if the Earth is flat, wouldn't you have heard of someone falling off? I mean, if that's or at least floating off it. Let's say that it's that if you get to the edge, you end up in space somewhere, and you're without gravity or something, so you don't really fall off. But even if that were true, wouldn't we have heard something about that by now? It's very. I'm a a rational human being, but I do believe in that there are things that we do not understand, and I believe that people like yourself enlighten us about these things. I had never thought of the Bible in terms of astrology, and this idea of astrotheology completely fascinates me, and that's why I wanted to have you back. But there are some things that almost are impossible to fathom, and the idea that the Earth is a flat plane is just one of those to me.
Well, it doesn't make sense to me because there's things called atmosphere. There's you have gravity. You have things called atmosphere. You lose all oxygen and everything. So while you're on Earth, if you take a step off, you fall off of it. You end up in space. It doesn't make sense. In a globe shape, everything being kept together by all the forces. It just makes more sense to me.
Yeah. I agree with you, and I'm sure someone at some point will want to come on the program and defend their views. What is acoustic levitation?
Acoustic levitation is basically the idea, and I write about this in my third book. It plays a part in it. What it is basically it's how the pyramids used to be made. Okay, what it is you have a device that resonates at a certain frequency. Okay.
Right.
You resonate it with the same frequency as the limestone, and then it just picks it up into the air like a tinker toy. You can literally type in acoustic levitation into YouTube, and I'll show you on a small scale how there's just like a big flat marble rock. Okay.
Right.
And they turn it on. It's on a plate, and they turn on the vibrations, and it just shoots it up into the air like it's nothing.
Really?
That's how they used to do it. Yeah. There's also something called acoustic drilling, which is, you know how they say that tuning forks were invented in the 1800s or the 1900s?
Yes.
Yet there's so many hieroglyphs of them using tuning forks. Well, why? You ever seen a perfect circle board in a limestone block, and you're like, how the hell did they do that? It's with acoustic drilling. What they do is you take a pitchfork, okay, and you smack the pitchfork. You land against the limestone. And the important thing is that it has to match resonating frequencies. So when you vibrate it, it has to vibrate at the same frequency that the limestone is. But what it does, it just cuts through it like butter. That's how they're able to make these perfect holes, perfect circles.
Do they use that any of that technology today when they're boring out tunnels and that sort of thing?
I wouldn't think so. I don't think so. I don't think so. They that's kind of like lost technology. But I do write about it.
Speaking of lost technologies, are there any things, for example, like this, besides acoustic levitation and the acoustic drilling, for example, that were lost arts that you don't see practiced anymore, things that they did in the past that we don't even know how to do anymore or believe in?
I'd have to get back to you on that, to be honest, because my mind is flooded with ideas, but I'm trying to think if there's any that make sense that I can explain in a short time.
Yeah. How did you come to become interested in this? Because something must have caught your eye, or something must have triggered it. How did that come about for you?
With the astrotheology?
Yeah. Oh,
so
yeah. How did you suddenly connect? Were you looking at the Bible one day and you just happened to say, wait a minute, this sounds like this sounds like Sagittarius. This sounds like Aquarius. This sounds like the fish. This sounds like the wheat or whatever. I mean, did it just pop into your head or?
No, I mean, I'm not I didn't create astrotheology. I just merely studied it. And I've just been decoding. I've been decoding it on my way. Like the decodings in the Bible that I've been doing with it are my own work. But I didn't come up with the science of astrotheology.
No.
You have to understand.
Science, but how did were you the first one to connect the dots between the Bible in this?
No, not even. But I go into it deeper.
Okay.
I go into it deeper.
Because up until I had never heard about this, and I'm glad that I did. And this just absolutely fascinates me because now it's going to change my entire perspective as I reread the Bible. Because I make it a point to, I try to read. I'm not a scholar by any means, but I try to read the Bible every year. And until or at least portions of it, I never looked at it that way. Now I'm going to look at it from a completely different perspective, which is what I think you want the readers of your books to do, is to take a look at your fiction work and maybe be challenged by what you write to delve further on their own into the Bible and look at it from a completely different perspective.
That's what I want to do. Is I want to teach a new group of students. The two that I have to give my all to are Santos Bonacci and Jordan Maxwell. These are two people that really taught me everything that I know, and then I just went further with it.
That's fascinating. I know who Jordan Maxwell is. I don't know the other individual, but interesting stuff. So the next time we have you on, let's do the Book of Enoch. I really am fascinated by that. Now, our own government probably uses some of this to a certain extent. Organizations, I mean, they must have. If you're not the first one to come up with this, there must be a connection. Like, for example, the Central Intelligence Agency or the FBI or that sort of thing. There's something about mind control involved in this, according to what I saw. Tell us about that a little bit.
About the mind control. So my first book is about MK Ultra, basically.
Okay.
Which is the idea of creating multiple personalities in people. And they do this all the time. Disney does this to their child actors. What it does is this. You torture them specifically, and then when they're at their breaking point, where their body and their minds can't take anymore, they're either going to die, or what happens is their brain fractures and a new personality comes out. And if you've ever watched multiple personalities on TV before, it's always a stronger personality taking care of a weaker one.
Yes.
That's usually what ends up happening. But what happens is you can keep breaking personalities up and have multiple personalities, like the movie Split. And then you program one personality to do something, and then at the end of it, they will have no idea what they did. If you're talking about John Lennon being killed by Mark David Chapman, as soon as he shot him, he dropped the gun and took out Catcher in the Rye from his backpack and started reading it. And any interview that they do with him, he says he doesn't remember shooting him. So they do this.
It's the same with Sirhan Sirhan and Robert F. Kennedy. He said that he did not remember doing it at all, that he might have been programmed or used, or like the Manchurian Candidate, the movie The Manchurian Candidate. The same type of thing where after they commit a certain act, they revert to a different personality that obviously doesn't remember what the other personality did.
Yep. Mm-hmm. That's what they do, and that's the story behind my first book.
Well, I tell you what, I'm gonna have to pick up. I'm gonna have to get that first book and read it. But I highly recommend that people get as many of these as possible. And what I would like to do is maybe schedule you to have you back on again in a couple of weeks, if we could.
You have my email. I'll send you my schedule, and then we'll just work around that for sure.
Yeah, I would absolutely love it, because I really want to go through the Book of Enoch with you. Because that's one of the books that I'm going to be covering with another guest that we have on, but I'm going to be covering it with her through a different perspective. What I'd like to do is cover it with you through the zodiacal perspective, and I think we'll have something interesting to discuss about that. So please, this is an honor to have you on the program. Let me get the names of your books out there one more time. Again, folks, it's the Into the Rabbit Hole series. You have Beneath the Veil, The Sacred Stones, The Secret Weapon, Pangea's Pandemic, The Hidden Archives, and the book that'll be out in September, I believe, is called The Final Type. And Micah T. Dank is the author of these books. I highly recommend them. I've learned about astrotheology. I'm still a novice. We've got much more to cover on this. So we're definitely going to have you back on some sort of a regular basis, Micah, because I think that it'll not only help sales of the book, but I need to be educated on this, because this is something that you've just touched a fascination in me, and I think we need to cover it more.
I do too. I think it would be great.
All right, so we'll definitely have you back on a couple weeks. I'll be in touch with email. We'll schedule for you, get something together for the next 2 weeks from now.
Thanks. And also, if everybody wants, I'm on Twitter at Micah Dank. I'm
Real
on
Micah
Facebook
Dank.
and Instagram at Micah Dank. I run a Facebook group called Micah Dank Into the Rabbit Hole. If you join or you reach out to me, I'll reach out to you. We'll have conversations if you have any questions.
Absolutely. I highly recommend it. Real Micah Dank is his Twitter handle, and he's also on Facebook and Instagram, and he's got that Micah Dank Into the Rabbit Hole Facebook group on Facebook. All right, very good. Thank you so much, and I will be in touch with you. We'll get you back on soon. Thank you. All right, Micah Dank here, and we're just going to have him back on a couple weeks. There's just a lot more to be learned from him. We appreciate having him on the program. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be joined by Michelle Stefanik. She's been talking about Benghazi, 9/11, the African embassy bombing, all inside jobs. And we're going to get to with her in just a moment. Stick and stay. And by the way, I'm feeling very generous today, and I've got something I want to tell you. Guys are going to love something that we're going to be doing with the bundles. Something you are going to absolutely love. So if you're not already a Dark Outpost Inner Circle member, if you've held off becoming a member of the Inner Circle at only $30 a year, I'm going to make it worth your while like you would not believe. Stick around for that announcement coming up a little bit later on the broadcast. We will continue in a moment.